We have an interesting cast of characters here, and we're really pleased to have them here. As we start celebrating and continue celebrating the 30th anniversary of the release of the BACnet specification and the 30th anniversary of the first public demo of BACnet interoperating with multiple vendors here at this show, we're happy to have these august and well-known, mostly people, to help us understand what the origin of BACnet was, how it's evolved over time, and where it's going in the future. Right? They're all engaged members of the community. We have founding members of the SSPC. We have multiple chairs of the SSPC over the years. We have founders and leaders of important organizations that support the BACnet community around the world. It's an amazing group, and I'm actually very proud and pleased to be on the same platform with them, to have a session here together where our intent is to review the origin story a little bit from, let's hear from people who are actually there, and listen to the adoption and growth and evolution of BACnet story a little bit from people who are actually involved in it. And then talk about the future, hear about the future thoughts from people who are going to create it and build it. So that's our intent today. Along the way, we'll talk a little bit about capabilities and benefits from users and suppliers who actually live it day to day, and a little bit about test and certification from people who actually do it, and talk a bit about the impact on society from people who measure that kind of thing for a living. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's go ahead and get started here. I first want to introduce our panelists. There's quite a few of them, so I'm going to make these introductions really short. But I don't want to leave you without more background. So if you capture that QR code, you get to go to a page to learn more about them. But just from here across, we have Steve Bushby, one of the BACnet pioneers and founders of the SSPC, and Jim Lee, who's conveniently next, BACnet evangelist and market visionary, Dave Robin, a former BACnet committee chair and a BACnet SC expert, Karl-Heinz Besler, a charter member of Big EU, as well as its first vice president and a former president, Hans Szymanczyk, who's also an original member of Big EU way back when, and is currently serving as a staff lead for that organization. Alexandra Henke, next? Yes, she is, good. MBS BACnet Test Center Manager. And then we have Coleman Brumley, also another chair for the BACnet committee. And Scott Ziegenfuss, the current chair. You can ask him questions. Nate Beans, the facility management out of Nebraska University, talking to us from the user perspective. Emily Hayes, BTL manager. Dave Nardone, a former facilities manager, although you might know him in other roles as well. He'll speak today as a user. Saki Srantan, a founder of INBAC, which is the integrated building automation community in India. She's come from India to talk with us today. And Fei Han, an assistant professor at University of New Hampshire, and author of a BACnet study talking about the impact of BACnet on carbon mitigation over the last 30 years. So that's our panel. With that behind us, let me go ahead and get started, starting with the origin story. So where did all this come from? Well, to find that out, you have to go back to the early 1980s and the facilities management group at Cornell University, where Mike Newman, who's frequently referred to as the founding father, decided the situation he was in was intolerable and wanted to see if he could fix it. Unfortunately, he passed away some years ago, but we do have some video of him talking about that process and what led him to get things started. So let me go ahead and play that video, and you can hear it from Mike himself.
In 1981, Johnson Controls came along with their digital system controller 8500, the DSC 8500s, and said, hey, we have this new thing, it's based on microprocessors, wouldn't you like to use it? And of course, we had been using Johnson pneumatic controls more or less forever. So we said, sure, let's give it a try. And right away, the first question we asked was, well, you know, can it talk to our existing IBM System 7 computer? And they said, oh, no, you have to buy a JC 8540, our central computer, because that's the only computer that can talk to these Johnson DDC devices. Well, of course, since we could already talk to some other stuff, we said, well, you know, tell us how to talk to your DSC 8500s. Give us the protocol. And after much kicking and screaming and lawyers and all kinds of things, the highlight was when they said, well, if you implement our protocol incorrectly, you might blow up your buildings. And we said, yeah, but there are buildings. We can blow them up if we want to.
So that experience and other ones like it motivated Mike to seek out ASHRAE as a forum where perhaps he could agitate to get some work items started that would try to address this problem. And doing that for a few years led to his leading the formation of a group to work on it, which later became the BACnet Committee, or SSPC 135 as we know it today. So let's hear a little bit from Mike about what those first meetings were like.
We were sitting around, we said, gentlemen, you know, let's figure out what the characteristics of a good protocol might be. And so we had a butcher block pad of paper, and we started writing down the things that people thought were necessary for a good protocol. And after about half an hour, we realized, everybody realized, and that was the point, that there was not an existing protocol of any manufacturer or anyone else that met all these requirements. So the way had been cleared for developing something more or less from scratch. And so that's what we undertook at that point.
So with that background, let me ask Steve, who was also there at that first meeting, to tell us a bit about what it was like to try to move this initiative forward within ASHRAE in those early days.
One thing that's not in the clips that you just saw from Mike, what was the attitude of people about this whole exercise? Because you see all the control experts, all the lights, the bulls of the industry, if you will, were convinced that this could never happen. They didn't believe for a minute that this could actually succeed. Not because it couldn't be done technically, but because they didn't think politically it could ever happen. Control companies liked locking their customers in. They didn't think they would cooperate with us. They thought there would be lots of foot dragging and problems, and there would just be no way to get a consensus. So that first meeting that we were at that Mike described, it was in Nashville, Tennessee at the Opryland Hotel. And the tension was incredible when you walked into that room because nobody knew what the other person was going to do. And there were all these people that were sent there to defend their company and their company's products, and it was very nervous. There was one guy in particular who was a member of the committee. He was an architect. He was actually a retired professor of architecture from Iowa State University. His name was Eno Kainlari, and he had a sketch pad. And he sat there in the room, and he was sketching the people that he thought were going to be the critical characters. It was just amazing to watch him do this. Like years later, I tried to get copies of those sketches, and he couldn't find them, so I never did get them. But it was a very tense situation. But Mike was right about the flip chart, where we put together the list of characteristics that really helped break the ice, help people see that we really needed to start from scratch. And those features that we outlined are the features that have made BACnet successful today and continues to make it successful as we move into the future.
Thank you, Steve. Let's spend just another minute with Mike listening to his take on that progress from 1987 or so to 1995 or so.
Throughout the 8.5 years of development, Steve and I went through some tough times when we got buried in public review comments and so on. And, you know, even up toward the end, we were saying, well, you know, they said it could not be done, and we haven't proven them wrong yet. So it wasn't until the standard actually got finalized that we could say, yeah, well, now it has been done.
I thought maybe we would recognize through that in 1995 we had a standard, but not yet an industry. Right? There was a standard, but there wasn't any progress until the standard went further than that. But still, it's a very significant milestone. So I want to take just a moment to listen to another person who was back there in the early days working on BACnet, and his take on what it meant for that milestone to be accomplished of getting the spec released. This is a clip from David Fisher.
I think it was an asteroid hitting the Earth level event in the sense that for years, some groups had been saying, you don't want to do that, that's bad for the industry, that will hurt everybody. And yet, when it actually happened, everybody looked back and realized, well, no, that's not at all what happened. Things got a lot bigger and a lot better.
And indeed, with the retrospective look for 30 years, we can see it got a lot bigger and a lot better. Dave's observation is completely correct. So what I want to do is now move from origin story a little bit and talk a bit more about the growth, evolution, and adoption of BACnet, because when you think about it, the adoption of the standard created the beginning of a wave, right? And that wave led to widespread adoption around the world. But the question at hand is, so why was it adopted? And why did it spread? So let's hear what a few of our experts have to say. And let's start with Jim in the context of global outreach. Jim, what is your perspective?
Well, I think that I have to give a lot of credit to Steve Bushby, because the international standardization work with CEN and ISO was very important. At one point in the early 2000s, Steve, Mike, and I and others traveled the world in a traveling BACnet roadshow, be it Russia, the Middle East, China, Japan, Korea, to promote the standard. But we also had to develop the testing standard underneath and basically compose some elements of the industry to make sure that people could guarantee interoperability from a specification standpoint.
Good, thank you. For another perspective, let me ask Nate to speak for a few minutes from the perspective of a user about, so why was BACnet adopted? Why did it matter?
So I've really appreciated watching these clips that Andy's brought for us today. Someone who is sitting up here with slightly less gray hair than some of my colleagues, but still some, I think something that I've actually taken for granted at some points in my career is this concept that I can have equipment in my building, I can have a rooftop unit, I can have a thermostat on the wall, I could have a lighting system, all of which can interoperate, all of which I can pull into a single system. And that's almost table stakes for an integration. If you walk it on the show floor today, I'm not quite sure exactly how many exhibitors we have with BACnet products on the floor, but it's an astonishing number. And I think it's worth mentioning that one of the things we take for granted today has enabled so many great building innovations.
Dave, do you happen to know the number?
I can't answer that. We have 100 exhibitors and 1,157 tested products on the floor today.
Yeah, that's a big number. That's a big number. To take it from another perspective, Scott, what is your perspective on sort of the role of the evolution of the standard itself in its adoption and its spread?
Well, I think the standard's done a great job of adoption. I mean, the biggest thing right now moving forward to me is our standard is so diverse. Most people don't know we have a wonderful data model. Most people don't know that we're about to go into semantic tags. Most people don't know that we have a RESTful web service for enterprises. So you can do a great REST API. So many things, because we have this massive standard that's basically 3 inches thick. So what we're looking at, how do we adopt it forward, is how do we make it easier for you? How do you go in and actually find the things that you want, or things that you don't understand that we even have, whether, whatever that is, whether it's network security with, BACnet SC, because we deprecated our Clause 24 when we brought it out in 2008, those type of things. So those are the things is that with AI, is that whatever. So we've actually started a new working group to try to how to get that information to you, make it easier for a new engineer. Because if you take a new engineer and you take a 15,029 page standard and put it on their table, they're going to look at you like you have 2 heads.
You'd have to have 2 heads to do it. Great. To get another perspective, because when I talk about BACnet adoption and spread, I mean like global. And so a big part of that, of course, was BACnet adoption and promotion in Europe. And if Karl Heinz could give us a few words on sort of how did that happen and how was that different maybe than how it happened here?
Yeah, we have had different approaches for open communication starting in the early 90s. It was driven mainly by the public authorities who want to have competition in their large facility like military facilities or big university campuses. And we have had different smaller developments which didn't reach the economic breakthrough because numbers of installations and so on had been too small. And we had been looking for a global standard. We thought in Europe, if a standard will arise which will be a brand like McDonald's or Mickey Mouse, which is going through the globe and adopted everywhere. And when the third public draft appeared from the BACnet protocol description, we had been full of hope that this will be also the breakthrough in Europe. And therefore, we started to connect to the ASHRAE team in 1980. In 1997, we had the first small booth together with Mike Newman in Frankfurt as a HVAC fair, like here the AHR fair. We have a ISH fair in Frankfurt, comparable for the European market. And then we founded in 1998 the BACnet Interest Group Europe. And since that time, we are in close relationship here with the SSPC team. We have 2 members always working in the standardization. We did promotional work. We had been always in close relationship with BACnet International in regards of trade fair activities. We have common booths. We started with 17 members in 1998, and now we have 130 members in Europe. So this was also a success story for us. And today, in Europe, BACnet is the standard for large facilities for open communication. Besides the customer-driven demands, we have had also internally in the companies a demand to have a standard protocol, because we have had developed such a huge size of proprietary gateways for system integration purposes to get a fire alarm system together with the building automation or a lightning control system and so on. And those gateways cost a hell of a lot of money to develop and to maintain. And BACnet, therefore, is the best tool set to adopt different pieces of equipment in the building and make them speak against each other and without any additional gateways. This was a good help for us, and we are still BACnet is still a success story. Different things came up. IT security came up. We got BACnet Secure Connect for this demand. So BACnet is a living standard. It's going forward, and thanks to the SSPC 135, they keep it up to date and included all the new requirements in the BACnet specification in the standard 135.
Good. Thank you, Carl. Let's rotate the globe a little bit and focus for a minute on India, and have Saki talk a bit about what drives adoption in India.
So with the guidance of BACnet International, that we formed integrated building automation community back in India, we see that the adoption is happening, like the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, powered by Ministry of Power, the latest code has BACnet as a standard. That's not a problem. The problem is now that we have to, like, in India, we have to understand that it is not more about technology. It has to be more about interoperability in the buildings. Now, when we talk about technology, there are many things which are coming up. Like for every subsystem is a smart subsystem. So it is driven by IoT, and it has its own app on your mobile. But as long as all the subsystems do not talk to each other, the building doesn't become smart. So that is what we are working on consistently. And consistent adoption of BACnet standard is what we are trying to drive.
Good, thank you. I have another question I want to ask, because we talk about SSPC 135. To be completely correct, it's ASHRAE SSPC 135, and we just kind of treat that as 5 extra letters. But in fact, ASHRAE is the incubator, the home of SSP 135, and it has been even before there was an SSPC in the earlier committees. So I'd like Steve to give his perspective on, so what was the impact of ASHRAE being the home for it when this adoption and this explosion in reach happened?
I think there were two aspects of it. One is that ASHRAE contains a broad spectrum of folks in the building industry, including a lot of people who are facility managers and users of the control products. They were really pushing for this because they were the driving force behind it, and they're the ones with the dollars to buy the products, so they had a very strong influence. But it was the credibility of ASHRAE that really helped give people the confidence to begin to buy products and to have some faith in the future of the standard, because ASHRAE was globally known for developing quality technical products, and that reputation was really key. Another key aspect was the openness of the process that ASHRAE has in place for developing standards. Carl was talking about the beginnings of the interactions in Europe. It actually began in 1991 in the first public review of BACnet. We got 550 some comments from, I've forgotten how many countries, 10 countries or something like that, but many of them in Europe and Asia. And because of the openness of the process, we encouraged those people who were submitting comments to interact directly with us, which was a lot harder in those days. We didn't have Zoom meetings, but we made them feel welcome and they got engaged, and they still are engaged to this day after all these years. We still have people in all of our meetings from Europe and Asia. And that helped us to really build not just goodwill, but they were invested in it because it was their protocol too. They were involved in helping shape it. So I think the relationship of ASHRAE's reputation and the way that we embrace people from different places really were key.
I think that's become a hallmark, actually, of BACnet around the world, the welcomeness to all kinds of interactions with all kinds of organizations and people who have the vision of buildings that have interoperable systems such that they can be better managed, they can contribute better to their organization and to the community in which they live. So I think it started on a good track, and I think ASHRAE has a role in that happening. So we frequently hear about the broad application base for BACnet in terms of building systems, right? Lots of different building systems are accessible through BACnet. And I'd like to ask our panel, whoever wants to answer it, why is it important that BACnet has that broad reach into different subsystems in today's building landscape?
I wanted to jump in when we were talking about the international adoption and give a few examples of international input. It really is global, and it's come into the standard and for the better. For example, we have elevators in the standard because the city of Hong Kong wanted to have all of their elevators, which were insanely high number, on BACnet. And we thought that was a great idea. We worked with them on requirements, and the end result was a large suite of support for elevators and vertical transport. And as a fallout of that, a wonderful service called COV Multiple, which is broadly applicable to all products. So it began as an incubator in Hong Kong, but it became a wonderful feature. Likewise, the IEIEJ in Japan, led by Takeji Toyota, has been a stalwart supporter of BACnet, and they've given us contributions. We ended up with Global Group and other services like Value Source, which are broadly applicable, and every part of the industry can take advantage of it, but it came from an international source through their hard work of joining the committee. So I just wanted to mention those things.
Good, thank you. But I still want the question that I asked.
Sorry, that was an extra. So
and a good bonus. We appreciate that. But I still go back to the question of, so BACnet addresses a lot of subsystems, but why does that matter? What does it matter?
I think when we are inventing something, if it talks to the central system, then you know how it has been used in the building. So, for example, if say waste management related product has been or some subsystem has been developed, then if it is talking to the central system, it makes sense to have it alongside the water and how energy is getting conserved doing the waste management. If we see it in the seclusion, the prominent feature in India that we used is STP, the sewage treatment plant, because we have to save water. Now, if this STP is going to run at a very high energy cost, it doesn't make any sense. So it is very important that it is connected to the central system, and it goes for every system that we use in a building.
Good. Are there building applications where having information and control among different subsystems is kind of important?
Yes. From the lighting guy here, by the way, this is not my show. Absolutely. Because when you have multiple systems that can work together, like if I have lights and shades and you have HVAC and it's really bright out, I can bring those shades down, I can turn the lights down, and guess what? You get less heat. So we all save energy if we can actually work together. Now, working together is the big deal, whether that's access management, whether that's life safety, whether that's, we have elevators in BACnet. How about that? All the different things that we can do. If you can do everything from one location, that's key. You know, in fact, I know, in fact, the funny part is the bigger the job, the more important it is. Like the places like campuses. Absolutely.
Hey,
So I kind of want to build on what Scott said and take it from a little bit different angle. As a facility owner, one of the challenges is that we keep buildings for a really long time, and our buildings continue to evolve year after year after year. And I can't make a prediction as to how some of my buildings will be used 10 years from today. But one of the great things about BACnet is that we've been pounding on this thing now for 30 years as we're celebrating this show. And there aren't a lot of building problems that BACnet hasn't seen before. And so I know that, you know, if we build on a protocol like BACnet that has this experience, that has done these things before, that I'm not going it alone. And I know that as the requirements of these spaces change, that, you know, BACnet's going to continue to be the right tool. And, you know, as opposed to if I had overfit on some other product or some other widget.
anyone else have a perspective of an application? Dave?
So on the facility side as well, you're not held hostage by one manufacturer. You can expand your system and it will stay, you can maintain it through additional capabilities that BACnet adds, which is always nice. It's reverse compatible and forward compatible. So you always have a future with BACnet.
Good, thank you. Anyone else want to comment on that? Because if you don't, I'm going to, because I think there's one other application that I found really intriguing, which is, I mean, elevators being controlled by BACnet is kind of just generally cool. But actually it turns out to be really important, because over the last decade or decade and a half, the whole concept of how you safely evacuate a large building has changed. To where initially it was like you don't use the elevators, right? There's no fire, don't use elevator. In large buildings, that's not necessarily the right answer anymore. Depending on the situation and where the elevators are located, and if you have multiple banks of elevators, you might actually want to use certain elevators to accelerate evacuation. But to do that safely, the HVAC system, the life safety system, and the elevators all have to know what each other's doing and why and when. And even better if they can connect that to first responders. So the ability to tie those systems together makes a whole new approach to a really important life safety issue possible. And I think that we'll see more and more of that as people look at these multiple subsystems tied together. What creative things can they do? And that's really a powerful part of what BACnet brings to the scene. Of course, to actually do that, you have to have some specific capabilities built into BACnet. And I'm going to invite the panel to enumerate a few of those. They're pretty straightforward and easy things, but what does BACnet actually do? What does it allow you to do? Dave, you've got some of these in your head, I know this.
Yeah, again, from the facility side, local control. So when the internet goes out, it still works.
That is convenient.
Alarming and trending, data sharing, synchronization, all these things are very important.
Anything else someone wants to mention along that line of the capabilities within BACnet that are important?
When we began this process, we were focusing on HVAC controls, but we recognized if we solved that problem correctly, much of our solution would work for other building applications. So the building blocks we picked were some pretty basic things like binary inputs and outputs and analog inputs and outputs, control loops, schedules, things that were important no matter whether you're talking about HVAC control or some other kind of building service. So we knew at the very beginning that it could expand beyond HVAC. In fact, I became the second chair of the committee after Mike, and during my time, we focused on two things. One was the testing process, and the other was expanding to other services. We created a group to deal with life safety systems. We created a group to deal with lighting control systems. We created a group, what we called utility interaction, something that later became smart grid. We could foresee that there was a need for buildings to interact with the electricity grid. So this was on our radar screen at a very early part of the process.
That speaks to the architecture of the original group, having the vision to see what might someday be useful and somehow building that in early on.
I think that vision also extends into the future, because what we're doing is trying to penetrate the different silos that exist in the building automation vertical to get that data up so that we can apply artificial intelligence and other new technologies to this vast amount of data that BACnet contains.
Anyone else? All right, let me ask another question then. All this technology and all this capability is really great, but at the end of the day, its value comes down to how does it benefit anybody? Right, and there's a couple different communities that it might benefit. So I want to start by talking a little bit about how does it actually benefit building owners and operators? What do they get out of this? Anyone care to step up? Speaking of facility owners and operators?
I'll take a swing at this. You know, we've talked a lot about the flexibility that comes with being able to competitively purchase equipment for a facility, to competitively purchase technology for a facility, property technology. But one of the things we haven't talked about is the the day-to-day flexibility that comes with being able to reconfigure the building to match the needs of the day, the needs of the campus. I work at a large university. We've got plenty of research labs. We've got stadiums. We've got daycare facilities. I mean, hospitals, you name it. And it's been tremendously valuable. So just like all of you, we had COVID hit March 2020. It's hard to believe it's been 6 years. And we're able to reconfigure our campuses at the drop of a hat, to change airflow, to keep people safe, to continuing doing the programming we needed for the community, to do vaccination clinics, all the stuff that we needed to do. And it would have been hard to do that reconfiguration without something like BACnet.
Yeah, the expansion and the integration of a system, BACnet greatly reduces that cost. You don't have to destroy or replace your entire system if you want to expand it or adopt it to something new.
In a commercial office space, I'll let Steve answer. He's got something to say. Go ahead.
Yes. One of the realities of the building industry is the people who manage facilities never have enough money. They don't have enough money for the staff they need. They don't have enough money for the products they need. They can't afford to buy what they want because their budget is not big enough. That's just a reality of what they live with. And that's important in BACnet because we recognize that the products needed to be able to last for a very long time. And part of the design for extensions to BACnet was to do it in a backward compatible way, so that if you bought a product and installed it, just because you're adding new capabilities with another product, it didn't damage what you already had. You could connect them together and continue to use those old products. And for building owners, that is a really important economic factor.
Yes.
Really quickly, we have a BACnet device still on the wall from 2002.
Wow.
I know there's older ones out there, but 2002 ain't bad.
Got a little red box around it just to
I was just going to add on to the history of it and again, congratulate the founders of this and the architects of this, because it really is the objects, properties, and services model that lets this all work. We talk about all these additions we've made to the standard, but the reason that this brand new elevator object can get its sensor data from a sensor value over there is because that same protocol is used and the same data model has been used since 1995. So you really can talk to, if there's a product hanging on the wall from 1995, you can talk to it today and integrate it in with all these new things. So we've expanded the services and expanded the objects, but it has truly been a compatible building block approach. And it's all due to an amazing architecture that was put in at the very beginning.
Can I add a perspective as a country?
Mhm.
So when you are producing anything like any devices or anything in India, uh, having a BACnet protocol is like having global passport. So these, like from a nation's perspective, I think when you are developing anything, then it can be communicating with any devices around the world. So that apart from the building stakeholder, it is also important that in the world it is adopted as the same protocol, because then you don't need the boundaries of any country or continent when it comes to protocol or communication.
Steve alluded to the fact that in the early days there was some question about, well, can this actually happen? Because the vendors of that time were kind of happy with it not happening, in the sense that they had customers locked in, and that seemed like a good business model, at least on the surface. But in fact, vendors today implement it, pretty much all of them. And they wouldn't do that unless there's some benefit for them in there. And we have some manufacturing backgrounded people up here, people who've been in companies that built products, so maybe you can help us understand why. What are the benefits to manufacturers of having this BACnet standard in their products?
What's the benefit?
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Thank you.
Because, well, for the simple fact, we'll go with the first one, it's usually in the spec, which is a really good thing because all building owners have this idea that they want a smart building, right? Every building owner you talk to, everybody you're going to be working with wants a smart building and thinks they're getting a smart building. And then they come back at you. Well, this is not really working with this, or this is not. That's the whole point. So that's why when we look at the Division 23, the Division 26, the Division 25, the division, all the different divisions inside there of a CSI master spec, they're going, okay, because this one thing you want to do is have all these different things work together because people want a smart building for the facility people as you talk there. So you have a single pane of glass, or not just glass, that actually you single stream of data that you know that, oh, I can go take care of lighting. I can go take care of the chiller. I can go take care of this. I know what I need to do and where I need to do it. You need that information. 8 different systems giving you that information? No fun. Not at all.
I like that answer. Jim.
I was just going to say that another thing that makes this very relevant is procurement, right? So procurement has driven open bidding processes, which have caused almost all large customers to have multi-vendor systems. And it becomes very expensive, even if you're the incumbent vendor on the site, and the owner looks to you to solve the problems. If you don't have open technologies, it becomes very expensive and unsustainable.
So Coleman, you're been involved with manufacturers for a while. What's your take on why manufacturers benefit with BACnet? Yes, that was the goal.
Yeah, I've worked with various manufacturing companies that develop product. It's kind of hard to articulate what when you're building a physical product, what it means to put BACnet in it. BACnet is a concept, but it's also a physical thing, right? When you buy an Ethernet chip, you get Ethernet. When you buy a 45 transceiver, you're getting 45. But the thing that runs on top of that, it makes it actually simpler to build a product that can do that stuff as opposed to needing to roll your own, and somebody mentioned IoT earlier, and I about fell out of my seat because, the thing about IoT is IoT doesn't work without the Internet of Things. If you take the Internet out of that, it falls apart. BACnet's not like that, and it's standardized, and you know what you get when you put it in a product.
Good, thank you. Steve?
I'll tell you a story from the early days that I think illustrates one of the main reasons manufacturers benefit. This is a true story. One of the first companies to develop a top-to-bottom BACnet product line was a medium-sized company that saw this as a way to expand their business. And Mike and I were talking with the principals of this company one day, trying to figure out why they took this big risk. They basically bet their company on BACnet before BACnet really was being used anywhere. And they said, well, we didn't really see it as a risk. We knew we needed a more capable protocol. It was going to cost us a fortune to build something with our own staff. It probably wasn't going to be as good as was put together by these experts from all across the industry and have all the review. We were going to have problems with debugging it and getting it to work and issues in the field. We thought it was safer for us to go with something that was done by this group of experts, and it cost us less money to make our products, and it gave us a way to get leverage to really expand our company in the marketplace. I think that is one of the big advantages to a company.
Thank you. See, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Speaking as the person that erased a year of protocol design off of the whiteboards in the conference room and adopted BACnet, you have to agree that if in order for that to happen, you actually just erase a year of design in favor of BACnet. You had to realize that BACnet had tremendous advantages. And we were also building 35 different protocols to talk to 35 different devices all over the world. And that was just a royal pain for us and our customers. And it was time for a unified protocol. And Steve's right. It was time to throw away the proprietary designs and take on a common design. Even if you didn't think it was the best at the time, everybody had enough vision to go, this is what we need. So.
Any other perspectives?
as a software engineer, I can speak a little bit to that. There's this concept of reuse within the software industry. How do I reuse this chunk of thing? So it's easier as a developer to develop BACnet product than it is to go out and roll your own and make your own. Even with the current, what the cool kids are doing these days with MQTT and all of that stuff, BACnet's still simpler than all of that. Those things, one of the things people don't really understand is that stuff it's new to the industry. It's new to what we do. And it's still got a lot of growing pains to go through. BACnet's been through that, and we know what we get when we go with BACnet. And it's less expensive to develop. The hardware's there. All of these things that you were alluding to earlier.
I find that pretty interesting because we talk a lot about BACnet reduces cost and risk for building owner operators and integrators, right? Because it removes that integration risk and the schedule risk and some of that old cost when you had to write drivers to 6 different things and keep them all updated and all that fun stuff. But the fact that it also reduces cost and risk for the suppliers once they actually got into it is an interesting aspect of open systems in general, right? It actually benefits everybody once you get into it and get going with it. So I think that's a pretty exciting thing to hear from people who have lived it and actually work with it. So I have another impact question, right? It impacts sort of building owners and operators. It impacts product manufacturers. But I'm also curious what impact it's had on climate over the last 30 years. And we happen to have a professor here from UNH who's done some research to help answer that question. So give us a quick overview of what you did and what you found.
Okay, all right. I'm just very glad we're still talking about climate benefits and we're still talking about carbon savings. So anyways, so the simple question we ask is basically how much energy and associated carbon has been saved by BACnet-enabled building automation systems in the past 30 years in the commercial building sector. So to solve this problem or to answer this question, we look at 2 dimensions. So spatially, we'll look at 4 regions: USA, Canada, Europe, and the rest of the world. And temporally, we went back 30 years, all the way to 1995, all the way to 2025. And also, we project forward 5 more years to 2030. So, and we focus on 2 energy sources, the natural gas and also electricity. So I want to share a few main key takeaways from the research, and I'll share probably 3 of them. Number 1, scale. So how much energy or carbon has been saved? 1.4 billion metric tons. That's a large number. And what is it? So let me put it in perspective. So that's even bigger than the total carbon emission by an entire country of Japan in 1 year. Or if you like car references, so that's basically equivalent to taking off all the cars in the United States for a whole year. So that's how much carbon mitigation we have saved using BACnet-enabled building automation systems in the past 30 years. And the story is not over yet. So this number is projected to grow to 2 billion metric tons by 2030. So that's very impressive. So number 1 is where are those carbon savings coming from? So that's very interesting because we see some spatial differences. So in United States, we see 70% of the carbon savings are from electricity, and the rest 30% is coming from natural gas. Whereas in Europe or Canada, natural gas plays an even or even larger role compared to electricity because of the larger heating demands in those regions. So number 3 findings is more about how things change over time. So if we look at the annual carbon saving history in the past 30 years, we see a clear takeoff around 2005. That's when BACnet and also the building automation system sort of accelerated. And also after 2015 to 2020, around that period of time, the carbon emission still grows, but the growth rate sort of like plateaued or slowed down a little bit. And that's not because BACnet stopped working. It's actually because the electricity grid is getting cleaner. So per unit of energy saving is corresponding to less carbon emissions. So to be honest, that's actually a good problem that we're having. that's the three biggest takeaways from that study.
Thank you, Professor Hahn. That is good to hear, because we talk about it, and quantifying it is a good thing. We appreciate that. CO2 mitigation is one social impact or community impact from having integrated buildings and those things being enabled by BACnet, but there are other social and community benefits, I think. And I'm curious if our panelists would like to offer their observations on any of those. How else does it help the community in various ways? Thoughts? Anybody? Yes.
So actually, BACnet enables communication, and that's a great thing because its communication is not mainly with machines, it's communication with people as well. And so at the moment, very often specification is an issue, and BACnet helps with specifications. It gives people a template. And so I think that is one of the biggest benefits beside all the stuff we have heard already here, that BACnet enables that. So I think that is a really great thing.
Would anyone in the panel like to comment on the impact BACnet has on the innovation rate in building automation, the innovation of new sensors and new subsystems and new ideas?
Well, I think the capability of having all these different systems in your building communicate with each other. In the past, we used to just talk about energy savings with scheduling. That was the big thing. But now we're talking about new technologies like CO2 and occupancy, and even camera to detect occupancy. I mean, it's a continuous. The industry is now voraciously consuming sensor data. We just want more and more sensor data, and all of that would be meaningless if you can't actually get the data from one device to the other. So in the old days, it was electrical signals or pneumatic signals, but now we have BACnet that enables this proliferation of data. So if somebody says, I want to sense something, VOCs, you can get that VOC data into your strategy now, into your comfort and air strategy. So it's just, I think it's enabling us an explosion of algorithms based on, for personal comfort, balancing personal comfort and energy savings based on all this sensor data, and BACnet's enabling that sensor data.
In 1995, if you asked me how many BACnet vendors there might be in the world, I would have probably tossed out a number like 100, thinking that was a generous number. But the last I checked, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's something like 1,595 registered BACnet vendor identifiers in the world. And I shook my head, how could that be? Because there aren't nearly that many control companies in the world, not even close. And I think the answer is because many companies don't make control systems, but they make a product that's used in a building, and they use BACnet to optimize their product and to enable the integration of their special sauce in with a building system. I think that's where a lot of the innovation has come.
Yeah.
People make pumps or fans or variable frequency drives or other kinds of devices that are used in the building. They don't make a building automation system. They make a product or maybe a small number of products. And this allows them to use their special knowledge in that product space to make that product better and competitive. And there are thousands of them out there.
I think that's a great point, Steve. It actually enables companies to do a piece of the solution, not have to do the whole thing, which means a lot more companies can do it and with a lot narrower skill set, which is a really positive thing for innovation. Yes, Carl?
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to what David said and also what Steve said, is that sensors of all different types, oh my God, getting that data and be able to share that data. Remember years ago, and I'll just give a good example, if we're just going to use occupancy sensors, we all understand what an occupancy sensor is. That was great. But now the occupancy sensor, it was, we have somebody in there or not somebody there. We can do something with it. Terrific. But now you can start going, well, wait a second. You can take that same data and put that into basically a repository and go, we don't really use that room that much. We don't use this room that much. We might be able to put, just have one room instead of two, because the timing goes, because I can know exactly when that space is now being exactly used, and now we can start repurposing. So again, bringing that data in, put it into a central repository, and that's the key, out of the data being the same. If you have 5 different sensors and they're all producing 5 different types of data and you have to try to transfer that information over, God bless your heart. So there's the big key, that it all comes back and it all is talking the same language. Just like us, you know, the more we can all talk the same language, whatever that is, the easier it is to make things happen.
Yeah. I want to think out of the box of the building, because we get additional services out from the web, yeah, like weather forecast, for example. And we have the grid, because we get more and more volatile supply from wind and sun energy. And we get different cost values for the current consumption of the main voltage system. So if you use BACnet to drive a chiller, because you know the energy signature of the building, yeah, you can do a predictive load analysis days before when you get the weather forecast, and you can pump up a storage tank with chilled water to save money and to load to let the chillers run when the electrical energy is cheap. Yeah, and BACnet is a good vehicle to bring all this together: weather forecast from the internet, the energy signature from the building, the storage capabilities, the chiller you have to run it, and to bring this together with the cost of the electrical power of the different hours of the day. So this is really a great opportunity. We are getting used now in these days, starting.
Good, thank you. So I want to move on from that topic to another question now, because the industry as a whole, and suppliers in particular, spend money, significant money, to get products tested and certified. And I go back to one of my earlier statements that you wouldn't do things unless they had benefits. So what are the benefits of this global testing and certification program? Any thoughts? Those of you that live it day to day?
So the certification program gives people who are buying the products, the customers, the confidence that a given product has been implementing the BACnet protocol correctly. We do a lot of other things that help that. We help promote those manufacturers who have products that do this. We provide opportunities for different manufacturers to get together and try out their new product that hasn't been through certification with someone else's product that hasn't been through certification, to understand the interoperability there. And the certification program, bottom line, builds confidence in the manufacturers and the products for those people who are using them.
Thank you. Roman, you have a comment? Yeah. Or Scott?
From a subsystem standpoint, it's huge. Because when our products are BTL listed, or certified now, sorry, years ago it was listed, I still say that. BTL certified, it gives the specifier better confidence that we know what we're doing. Because again, BACnet was started with HVAC in mind. And so specifiers, architects, engineers, think about HVAC must be the expert. So anything else, we're not quite sure. I wonder about these other systems. Will they work? I'm not quite sure. Are they experts? Well, yeah, because it gives everybody a good warm and fuzzy, from the installer to the integrator to the specifier, that yeah, these are going to work. Might be a little tweaking going on, but these will basically work. And as a subsystem, it makes you so much. Everybody's more relaxed. You're now working together if there is a problem. Not like, well, you don't know anything about BACnet. I know you got it in there, but it really doesn't work. You know, it's yours. No, we actually all work together. So it really does help to move us all forward and make it and allow us to work together.
I want to touch a minute on what Emily said. She sort of glossed over it. There is an annual event that vendors go to, the BACnet Interoperability Workshop. It's always been Plugfest for me. That's what we nickname it, Plugfest. I've been to 25 of these things. This coming year will be my 26th. And I can tell you, Dave was around then too. I can tell you back in the early days, it was a mess. You would walk over and plug into somebody's VAV or their thermostat. It didn't work. You couldn't communicate. We've gone from that to it actually being sort of a boring event now, where you go and you plug in with somebody else, you plug your devices together, and we're not concerned anymore with what does MSTP work, does IP, it just works. And I mean, having seen that progression over the past 25 years, for me as an engineer and a user, it's kind of amazing, to be honest with you.
So Alexandra, as a manager of a recognized BACnet test organization, what percentage of products that come into your lab work? We know they all work when they come out, because that's the point, but how many when they come in work?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So when you look at products coming into your lab, how often do they pass all the tests on the first try?
Oh, never. So in the last 5 years, we have one product that has only 3 deviations from the standard during the whole process. And on the other hand, we have one with more than 300. So we have the whole area, the range.
So clearly the test center has a job to do that's pretty important.
That is our job, and we love it.
So what does it take to become a recognized test center? Is that a big deal? Is that a lot of work? Or?
It's a lot of work, yeah. We have to demonstrate our technical experience, to apply the test standard and the BTL labs correct, the knowledge about the BTL tests and policies. Then that is for all. That is for the sorry. And also, we must have the accreditation for the ISO standard 70025. That is also a harder thing in the different countries. And if we have all of that, then we can get the recognized BACnet test laboratory from the BI.
Good, thank you. Better you than me, that's all I can say. Steve has a comment to make, and as one of the original test creators, let's have him speak to us.
I was, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is the benefits to the manufacturers of testing, which was not obvious to them at the beginning. In fact, most of them didn't think it was a good idea, to be honest. But these problems that she just told you about are found in the laboratory. It's so much less expensive for a company to sort out those issues while they're doing a testing cycle than it is to go back into a building with a customer and figure out why their building's not performing the way they wanted. It costs them a lot of money to do that. So the testing process helps defer those costs because you don't have to do it. But they get another benefit from that. They build a reputation amongst their client base because when they put it in the building and it worked, their clients notice that. They tell their colleagues about that. It helps to build a reputation in the company. So I think companies benefit very much in both of those ways from the investment they make in testing.
Outstanding.
As a building owner, I got to say I'm really grateful that we have Alex finding these 300 bugs and I'm not finding them in my building.
Yes, that is the point. So let me, I want to move on a little bit from that to another interesting part of this whole discussion, which is, so BACnet's evolved through these 30 years and it accomplished a whole lot of things, but it's not done, right? This is a milestone event, but it's not like it stops here, it keeps going. So I'd like to invite some of you to offer your sense of maybe where it goes next, what your vision might be for sort of the future of BACnet. And anyone who wants to can respond to that.
During my time as chair, just so you know a little bit of the background, we republish the standard every 4 years. So 135, 2024 is the current publication. There will be, God willing, there'll be a 28 and so on and so forth. So people look at BACnet as like a dinosaur protocol. It's antiquated, you know. Why can't you guys be more modern? I'm here to tell you, we're still working on the standard. During the 24 publication, there was 17 addenda added to the standard, 270 pages of content. This continues to evolve and will continue to evolve, and it's not locked down by any shape or form. We have future-proofed ourselves to a degree in that we've made things easy for us as a standards developer. Things like the introduction of Secure Connect, which is really just BACnet over WebSockets fundamentally. IPv6, new serial protocols, Zigbee, those sorts of things were, from a procedural point of view, they were easy to add because we future-proofed the standard in that regard.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the point, to keep going where Coleman's going, is we keep updating. We also change when we think we need to. A great example, it's been years now, but in 2008, we actually came out, remember, back in 2008, network security in our industry was security through obscurity, right? That was 2008. Till the 2013 happened, that was really, we all know what happened. So, it was really that way, right? So 2008, we came out with Clause 24, which is actually a really good secure model as far as that goes. And I know David did a heck of a lot of the work on that. But the industry pushed back and went, that's really good, but it takes us, because it's inside the standard, inside we have to put it inside there, and it's just a lot of work. Can't we just do something more normal? That the IT guys can work on? So then we went back, and again, people did the same work. We brought up BACnet SC, which basically says now, use standard protocols. Bring your IT person in to take care of it. You don't have to do it. We're lifting it up. We'll link onto it, but there's a whole other world there. This is how you change, and not only just moving forward, but you adapt and you keep moving forward. Like I said earlier, you don't know that we have a wonderful RESTful web service architecture for enterprise systems that are BACnet based, Yes, and if you want to do a RESTful API, go for it. Have a good time. But again, that's in there, but sometimes people look at that standard because it still has the same cover that it had, except for a different date than it had in 1995, and they think it's the same thing. There's a heck of a lot in there, from data models, and again, Steve's working on, and his team is working on semantic modeling. Oh my God, that's a future concept that's coming in. So there's so many things that we're moving forward for.
And I think that if you look at the world right now, it's very dynamic. It's changing very quickly. On everyone's mind is certainly artificial intelligence. And the question is how can we, as a community, source the data that we think will be necessary for those future applications? The work we're doing with the BACnet Cloud Collective and the Linux Foundation is a nod in that direction to see how we can liberate data from these data models, which, as Dave has said, are really the fundamental value of BACnet. How do we liberate that and make that available to artificial intelligence going forward? It's absolutely on our roadmap in this community, and we'll be working on that in the next several years. Very dynamic, so we're going to have to dynamically change what we're doing to keep up with where AI is going. But the fundamentals are in place, and I think that's why BACnet will be around for a long time.
Are other thoughts on sort of the vision for future BACnet? Nate?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I keep looking at, and one of the things that's been really great about BACnet's evolution, I think why it's still so competitive, is that it's an open standard, it's an open process, it has open meetings, it's free to participate. You can hop on Zoom. Everyone is welcome. And so we can keep evolving the protocol as we need to. And I'm really grateful for Dr. Han's research, because it just shows that we're asking more of our buildings, and we have more challenges in terms of how efficiently we're operating these facilities and the types of programming we have in these facilities. And ASHRAE's done some really great work on things like Guideline 36, where we have these really best of breed sequences of operations for how we can operate a space efficiently and comfortably, but that puts new challenges on our building operators, on our building mechanics. And so we have to keep looking, like, as we ask more from our buildings, we also have to level up our tool set. And the great thing about BACnet is, they let folks like me keep coming to these meetings and fixing my tools as we go here. And as we look ahead, we've got these human operators, but we've also got, agentic operators, AI operators. And so actually my university has some really cool research on AI in buildings, so catch me later. But so it's good to see that BACnet is part of that process and continues to level up with us as we ask more of our buildings.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because, some people think of BACnet 1995, twisted pair, that kind of thing. They don't realize that it's a continuous cycle of challenge and solution. And we're always adding to it based on the absolute cutting edge needs. And people come to us and say, we need security. And then after we have security, now we need authorization and authentication. And then we need certificate management. And every time somebody says, we're adopting your stuff, now we have a pain point or something, we need an extension, they bring it to the committee and we work on it. Then we add it to the standard. So it's an exciting, constantly evolving standard. And the whole point of everything we do, for example, we're working on certificate management right now because that's a pain point and we want to make it easy for the customers to deal with. So everything we're doing is trying to make it easy for customers to integrate the data all the way back to 1995 to all the most sophisticated thing of working with security and VPNs and VLANs and all that stuff. We just always concentrate on that and how can we help our customers by keeping up with whatever their latest needs are. And it's all based on a foundation that allows us to do that. When we added SC, I'll tell you, see one thing, when we added BACnet SC, we added it in as a data link, and that's kind of a geeky thing to say, but we bolted it onto the bottom because we had this marvelous framework of routing and application layer and everything above it. So it allowed us to add security in a very compartmentalized way that just made it work. And so it really, I don't want to harp too much on the original architecture, but it's been a great thing to extend on all these years.
I'm happy to share.
There are no kludges. Everything's extended in a very nice way.
I'm happy to share some information for SC adoption as well. Currently, of all the products that we have tested with BACnet International and BTL listed products, BACnet SC products share, actually, they can account for 15% of the products that we have on the tested site now. So in the few years since it's been introduced.
Other thoughts about the future of BACnet?
Add one point that how the human being has grown, like from Homo sapiens to Gen Z. BACnet will, we can't look at any this seasoned protocol as old because it is evolving. If it was not evolving, then it could have been a question whether it is new or old. So it is evolving. It is as competitive. And what happens is when I'm getting into innovation, I'm making a product. What do I want with my product? It has to be part of multiple solutions or as many a solution. For a manufacturer, it increases the market share. And also it helps my product to be tested in various environments so that I can say that my product is able to work at different levels. That is one thing. One more thing that we forget and which has been covered, thank you, 30 years back, you probably did not think of it, but this is what it is covering is, this is all done by human beings who need to be skilled into certain things. Now, if they start getting skilled into various protocols as per the manufacturers, it is going to be a disaster for the market, getting talent and also finding new jobs. So this is also something that it is covering and we should remember it.
I think that's a good point you bring up, Saki, that it's almost invisible to everything else. Workforce mobility in the industry has dramatically improved because you can take someone who works with BACnet stuff over here and have them work on that project instead, and they still know what they're talking about. Or you take a person from company A and they find a better opportunity at company B. Not that that would ever happen here in these companies, but if it ever happens, they could go to work there. Steve?
I'd like to say something about the future. It reminds me of the clips that you've been showing today came from a talk that Mike Newman and I gave at the University of New Hampshire some years ago, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And it was kind of a fun thing. It was a plug fest. And so they were BACnet insiders who just wanted to know what the real stories were, what happened back in the day. So we were just having fun telling stories, basically. But the very end of that presentation was a particular slide. The slide was two photos, both photos of one of my children First one is a photo of this child as a toddler, just learning to walk, grasping a table with a big smile on her face, and she had a BACnet hat on that was a product of one of the companies who was promoting BACnet. And the next photo next to it was the same person in college, just getting ready to graduate from college in Ithaca, New York. And I made the connection that it was like BACnet. BACnet started out as a small fledgling thing, and it's really grown and matured a lot. And just like this child has grown up from a little kid to be someone who is now about to graduate from college. But when you graduate from college, that's not the end of your life path. That's just a milestone along the way. And I think that fits the BACnet story as well. It's come a long ways, it's matured, it's really done a lot of things, but it's nowhere near the end. And I don't think we can know really what the future is going to bring. But I think just like a person graduating from college, there's almost limitless possibilities.
Thank you, Steve. That's a perfect way to close that part of it, because it is kind of that way, right? We can talk about the child, we can talk about the graduate, but it's hard to project where that might go. There's a lot of things that can happen from here because the platform's been built so successfully. And we have a next generation of people to do the next 30 years. So that's all good. I would like to stop here for a minute and give all of you out there a chance to ask more questions if you'd like before I wrap up the whole session. So are there questions you have for any of these people in there? Yeah, there's one.
Great session. The evolution on the security part is great, and the BTL testing is really improved product. Just confidence. My question though is, like your comment about the 2002 device. I work as an SI, and one of the challenges, and this might just showing as a question, is the device profiles. I've seen devices being sold in 2026, PFPs that don't support PFP or building controllers that maybe don't have very limited COP subscription capabilities or lack of BACnet or trending. Is there something that you guys are doing to try and encourage some people who might have developed a great product in 2008 or 2009 to maybe bring it forward that capabilities?
Part of the certification process helps with that because we have a minimum protocol revision that for which you can get a BTL certification. Right now, if you go into testing with a new product, you must be a protocol revision 18. Next year, you're going to have to be at 23. Right. Well, they're not going to have, if you have someone who has protocol revision 9 and it was 25 years ago, they're no longer going to have a valid certification. It was valid when it was tested, but we want, with the certification program, we encourage manufacturers to update their products. This is why the certificate expires after 5 years and the BTL listing expires after 15 years for most device profiles.
Yeah. These things really are important for scale. Like when you get that device that was BTL certified with respect, sometimes is the reason why we're having trouble building this otherwise at performance. Thanks for that.
I think it's an interesting observation that in the application space you're concerned about, these things are like needed. And maybe there's an application space where they're not. And figuring out how to make it visible to users what they're getting might be important, because I can imagine a lower cost, simpler device doesn't have those because it doesn't have the space for them. And that's fine for its intended application. It's not going to solve your problem very well. And finding an easy way to both specify that and then know it seems like an interesting additional future thing that can be looked at.
Yeah, I think sometimes people think they just specify a waterline.
Yes. Yeah, BACnet is deliberately modular to satisfy these broad building requirements. I mean, that modularity can be a problem if you don't specify it the way you need to, for sure. Other questions from the audience? Anything else? All right, I have one last question for our panelists, and just a couple of you can answer it if you like. But so some of you have lived through most of the 30 years, right? So what lessons can the community take away from the experience of BACnet's journey? What are some core lessons there? Anything?
to me, the beauty of it is, and I've said this before, but it's adapt. The core lesson is this is not ossified technology. This isn't frozen in time. It's a continuous process of evolution and growth. And this is why I have failed at retirement. Because I love this stuff and it's continuing to be challenging, and every day I work on something new for BACnet. And that is exciting. And that's the lesson to me, to never stop growing, never stop learning. It's just a personal lesson to me, and I've learned that from BACnet, watching the standard grow.
Yeah, it started smart, but the good news is that it's getting smarter even. And I think with the collaboration we have now between different organizations who are using BACnet, who have different requirements, yeah, that's a really nice chance to do something in the future. And I think that will be one of the goals.
I think that BACnet and the BACnet community facilitates communication and collaboration. Previously, when there were protocols that were only used by one company, pretty much you only talked within that company, or you might just talk within your department. But every other week, I have a meeting where we have experts from the entire industry who come together in Zoom to talk about how we're going to test products. Once a quarter, the BACnet committee, ASHRAE 135, comes together and talks about how everybody all over the world can make the BACnet protocol better. Every quarter also, I have a meeting with all of the RBTOs to talk about how we can make this testing work the same across all test labs, all nations, all time zones. So BACnet is collaboration in addition to being an open source protocol.
I think that's a good point, Emily. BACnet is so much more than a protocol, right? It is indeed a protocol. It's a technology, but it's also a community. And I'd make the case it's even more than that, that it's actually an idea. Right? It's an idea that this open, interoperable building automation systems can be good for users and good for suppliers and good for the community. And staying true to that idea has really been the key to leading BACnet to the global position that it has now as the integration platform for intelligent buildings and future intelligent buildings into smart cities and things like that. But that's happened because the community has made it happen, and we have some of the community members who've made it happen right here. So I'd encourage you all to give them a big round of applause and gratitude for their participation today.